All right, our randomized control trial. This was a big festival. We flew in there, and Annie, my beloved research assistant, who dares to go on and find another job, and she's leaving tomorrow, has come with me on many of these, and I've taken 8 students in all to go and sniff with me to smell if there's anything dirty under a rock, and we've all sniffed and can't find anything. We launched our randomized control trial in October. We had 500, just over 500 in the RCT, and split it so that 2/3 were in hope and 1/3 were in our control. And in this group, we found that there were large differences in missed appointments, large differences in dirties, big differences in the arrest rates. Look at this. The control group overall arrest rate was 34% higher, but mostly when the hope guys were arrested, it was for technical violations because they were coming in so often. We brought them in regularly for testing. And if we took out the non-technical violations, the control group had arrest rates that were 111% higher. Just to give you some context for these arrests, how this works, if you're in the HOPE program, you have to call what's called a hotline every day, every single day. And randomly, your color will come up where it won't. And if red comes up and you're Mr. Red, you have to go pee in a cup that day before 2 p.m. If you pee dirty, you're arrested immediately. Immediately, you're taken out of the probation officer by an officer and taken immediately to jail, or before a judge, and you're sentenced. The control group had scheduled drug testing. They knew a month in advance when they were going to be tested. You see the difference? They knew a month in advance that they would have to pee in a cup, and they tested dirty at rates hugely higher than the HOPE group that had regular random drug testing. If you're a new guy in HOPE, you get tested at least once a week, 6 times a month for the first few months. And they have next to no dirty, very few dirties in the HOPE group. Let's see, well, how did the community respond? How did the criminal justice folk and everybody involved respond to this? How do they feel about the program? The green bars are positive, the yellows are satisfactory, the reds are negative. Look at the probation officers. None of them are negative. They love this. It means more work for them. Everything has to happen quickly. Guy tests dirty, got to get him into court. More paperwork has to move around. They love this. It has changed their relationship with their probationers. Their probationers finally realize that they have more power. And when the guys do test dirty, they don't blame it on the probation officers. They realize it's because I used that I'm being punished. It's not because my probation officer's in a bad mood, which is how many guys in Prop 36 see it. I'm punished because someone else was having a bad day. Judges are loving the program. Prosecutors, there's some complaints among the prosecutors, and their concerns are warranted. And I think as this program moves to other jurisdictions, these concerns should be taken into account. What these prosecutors over here were concerned with is that they wanted to see a very clear mechanism for deciding who was eligible for HOPE. They were worried that eventually you might have some real big fish slipping into this program, and they were worried that some of their discretion was going to be removed. The public defenders, again, also quite positive. What is so interesting is how quickly these cases, I've taken a bunch of students, 8 students now, who can attest to this. These court cases happen so quickly. The defender comes in, there's a prosecutor, there's a defender. Prosecutor says, okay, well, even if you're only giving him 2 days, but I know you're going to do this consistently, I'm willing to agree for 2 days. Normally I would have gone for a 5-year term. I want to agree for the 2 days as long as you are credible. The public defender says, well, normally I'd say I want nothing, but I realize you could give this guy 5 years, so my goodness, 2 days sounds pretty good. This happens in seconds. These court cases just go, and they're done. So it's really not cluttering the court system much. How about the probationers? Now we just got back from Hawaii 2 weeks ago with the state, so we can't believe it. These are the guys who are sentenced to treatment. If you fail Proposition 36, and this is why it becomes such a beautiful behavioral triage model, a resource allocation model. If you fail this program, if you can't test clean, even though you know you're immediately going to jail, we know you have a real addiction. You're not just a play user. You have a serious problem if you can't stay clean. We can identify you, and it turns out to be a relatively small group. We can identify the hardcore addicts, and we can give you all the treatment that you need. Under Prop 36, we can't do that. We have no mechanism for identifying who you are. So these guys were sent off to treatment, and some of them go away for a really long time. It's quite common for a HOPE offender to get 2 years in residential care, because so few are being treated that they have the resources to go around. Look how positive they are. You've just been sentenced to 2 years behind, in a secured residential facility. Look how glowing they are. These guys shouldn't be happy. It's a long time to be doing something you might not want to do. These guys are in jail. Look at their response. We found them in jail. They have the most to complain about. They've just been arrested. Some cop car came up to their house, or they were dragged away from a probation office. They have every reason to complain, but no. because the rules are fair. Suddenly there's a game that they can understand the rules of, and they know that they're in jail because they messed up, rather than the system kind of having a quirky day. This is the specialized probation unit. These guys are really glowing. They have great probation officers. This is working very, very nicely. General probation unit. Across the board, we're seeing very positive responses to the program. Our general observation is that this hope effect has held across probation officers. We have many different probation POs implementing the program. It holds across officers, vetted in different probation officers. And very importantly, it holds across judges. No matter how the judges operate in court, whether they're horrible judges or great judges, whether they're nice with guys or if they're tough on the guys, it doesn't matter. It turns out that when you have rules that are clearly established, the judge effect doesn't matter. It's really just the rules of the game. So our results are really quite robust to differences in the courtroom. There are some serious limitations of my study, which are kind of fun, if not problematic for the research. The term limit makes me worried. I'm only tracking people for a year. What happens to them after that? Once they're no longer in hope, will this persist? I'll be pursuing research mainly to test that theory. Is this going to hold once the probation officer isn't calling you in randomly every couple of days? This was a very interesting one as a researcher, a spillover effect. And what happens is that when these guys, whether you're in the control group or in the hope group, if you're in the study, you'll go to the same probation office to receive the services or meet with the probation officer. Now, if you are not in the hope program and you're sitting on the bench waiting to see your probation officer, and someone was sitting next to you, and he now goes in to get tested, tests dirty, and you see the officer of the law dragging him away. Suddenly your behavior changes because many of them don't realize they aren't in the same program. So we've had this strange effect. Fortunately, it's not big enough to mess with our study. Strange effect is that all the ships in Hawaii have risen. Because of this credible program, word's out there that probation actually means something now, and all the probationers are starting to comply more, which for a randomized control trial is a disaster. You don't want the control group to have any of this treatment effect, which now they have. But still, the results are so different that it's not going to bother us too much. We have some questions about generalizability. The Hawaii probation officers are really well trained. They understand motivational interviewing, they understand cognitive behavioral therapy, they're well trained. Will this generalize to other states? Is Hawaii just quirky and strange? I get this often. I present around the country and probation officers will say to me, well, we're not Hawaii. Our guys are just much tougher. Then I'll show them the stats of the guys in Hawaii. They too were tough. They had terrible methamphetamine addictions. They were doing horrible things on the street. Just because they were on an island didn't make them goody two-shoes. They too were very poorly behaved, and now they're well behaved. But fortunately, because of the study, the National Institute of Justice has now funded 5 additional sites around the country. And now I'll be able to see empirically whether this holds out as we expand to other jurisdictions. That will be very exciting, and it will, any of the naysayers out there will be put to rest.